Okay, we're back from the power outage, and it's at COMP123, and it's week 7, lesson 7, part 2. And we just ended off with talking about these class diagrams when we do our assignments, right? So I recommend highly that, again, you create these class diagrams for you to compare them with what I've given you, and you're going to see that kind of stuff over and over again. Tomorrow, for an example, I'm going to come up with these the assignment will look very similar to this, right? It'll be an in-house assignment that you're going to have to come up with, and you're going to see a diagram like this, right? So, hey, the easiest way to do it is implement the diagram. Make sure that the diagram, your whatever classes are going to look like, it's got to look like mine, right? If it looks like mine, chances are you're close to getting it done, right? Now, the one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't give you the details. Like the implementation details, there's no code, right? You can't actually look at the stuff and it tells you what it's doing. Like, for example, if I click on this, right? So here's my deck. If I click on this, it changes my context down here, right? So my context down here, if you're set up the same way I am, is whatever I click up here, right? Down here, the properties change for each of the classes. So here's my deck, or the main deck class, right? As an example. And if you don't notice here, I'm just going to pull this up a little bit more so we can see more of it. I've got these little arrows that I can click on to see my methods a little bit more clearly. So let's take a look at the shuffle method, right? Can I see my code in the shuffle method? Well, no, I cannot, right? But I understand what the requirements are. This is a great outliner to outline the method or the property, or as an example, the instance variable, and then talk about what the modifier is going to be. I can actually program that all here before I actually code anything. Right? So if you're not great at coding, or if you're not great at outlining, you don't know where to start, this is a great start. Okay? And that's what I was trying to say before. Let's take a look at that, what this deck does though. All right? So again, last time we were a little bit confused as to what some of these things did, right? So I want to build my deck, right? This is what I'm doing here. I'm building my deck up, right? And when I call my build deck method, I have here, take a look here. I have a string array of suits. Okay, so here's an array. Whenever I have these square brackets here, I'm defining an array of suits. Okay, my suits, I'm actually taking from the container class. Remember we talked about this container class stuff. And my container class is called suits. This is what it looks like. And all it does in here is just define some constants. That's all it is. Now you can use the constants, the constant keyword, that's one way of doing it, or the static keyword, but not both. All right? But more or less they mean the same thing. All right? So all they are is container classes, so that way you can look at them and say, well, if I say clubs, then it means this string clubs. It's a substitute for these things. So I don't have to remember, I can be, I don't have to, if I make finger errors, if I'm typing away and I put clubs, if I'm searching for something, and I search for clubs, I'm searching for the type of thing I'm looking for, and if I make an error, this can be avoided by using constants, because you can select, you can pull down a list of constants as opposed to me typing it in. And that's just the power of using constants, right? And also, I can define them here, and once I've defined them here, if I change them here, instead of clubs, you know, as an example, I don't want to make a deck of clubs anymore, right? Maybe I want to change my deck of cards, so I make a tarot deck, right? Who knows what a tarot deck is? Okay, it's like one of those old deck of cards that you used to divine the future. If you're one of those kind of diviners, right? Like if you go get your fortune told, right? You have a deck of cards. Well, the old deck of cards, a little bit of history of cards, right? Is they used to have these other kinds of suits. So instead of clubs, they were called batons or staves. So let's change that. And so staves is one. And instead of diamonds, they were called coins, right? And instead of hearts, right, they were called cups. And spades were actually called swords, right? So this is the advantage of changing my constants. I'm just going to add this into my dictionary. So staves, coins, cups, and swords. This is the old way of doing it back in the day. And by the way, these 52 cards are called the minor arcana, and of course there's the major arcana, another 26 cards. But we're not going to define that. And if I was going to do it, if I made a tarot deck, that would be an example of a super class. I have a tarot deck, and you know what? Now I want to make a more of a common deck of cards, and I take the stuff from like tarot deck and I redo it. I kind of make a subclass. But let's take a look at this. So if I run this program now, well, now I get a 10 of staves, a 4 of swords, you know, a 4 of staves, a 3 of coins, and a 1 of coins, and I have to change it in one place, right? Otherwise, I'd have to go run around through my code and change it all over the place, right? I don't want that. I want to change it in one place, and that's why we make constants. So imagine you're making a game, and I want to know how many lives my player has, right? For those people who are on the game side of the house, right? I don't want to define the number of lives that iterate through different loops depending on how many lives I have manually by putting a hard value in there. I want to make a constant, and then if I want to change the life value, so let's say I start my player with 3 lives, and then later on I say, you know, I want to give him 5 lives because that makes more sense. I can change it in one place and it's changed everywhere. Right? That's the power of it. So that's why I chose to use constants in this particular example. Let's change them back. So I'm just going to undo. And this is back to the way it was. Clubs, diamonds, hearts, and spades. And obviously, if you notice these, it'd be weird, but I mean, I changed the value. The name is the name, right? Clubs is clubs, diamonds is diamonds. If I wanted to add additional constants in here, I could, right? So if I wanted to accommodate both regular cards and this other tarot deck of cards that has different names, I could. I could just add more constants in here, different kinds of suits. And I could add another one, another kind of specialized deck of cards, again, called the major arcana or minor arcana, or whatever. And I could include other kinds of cards in here, not just these ones. Okay, so that's why I use constants. Kind of cover that. Same thing with the, I have my suits, but I also have my faces. Here's my face cards. Why did I do this again? Well, this is great. I've got an ace here, but this is a problem, isn't it? My ace, if you play cards, right, can be a 1 or a 14. How do I show that? How can I show both an ace as a 1 and a 14? Well, I could give it different values. For example, I could say this is a 1, right? So when I know when I get 1 coming back, that it's an actual value of 1, right? And if I get an ace coming back, then it's a value of 14. I could do that here. The challenge is, this is the challenge, right? It really depends on the context of my game, right? And right now there is no context. All I'm doing is just dealing random cards. Okay, so I mean, really, right now there's no need for me to change anything. It would be more of a contextual thing as opposed to something that I've written in here like this. Okay. Let's go back. So I've done faces. Faces are like another constants. And then I have, let's forget my deck and I add Joker because those are just things I made for you to understand how to run things, right? And I don't mind this class diagram. Let's just save it and I'll close this off as well, right? But let's take a look at some of the other methods that I have in here, okay? So here's a peek at top cards. So I'm actually looking at the index. So here's arrays. I'm looking at the index of this first card, and I'm converting it to string. I'm using my toString method, right? Taking the card 0, and if I look at my cards array, here's my cards array, right? It's an array of cards, and the cards were defined as other classes. So if you notice, I declared a class of cards. Here they are right here, right? And the class of cards had these 2 faces. I had a face and a suit. That's what they were. And they're 2 properties plus private instance variables. And these 2 things here is what I used, right, when I created my my array. Wouldn't it be nice if I could see this in a diagram, see how they relate to the other one? Yes, it would be. I'm answering myself, Tom. I'm talking to myself. No one's listening to me. Who cares? Okay, let's go to, again, so it's not view code. It's view class diagram. And it's not show on code map. That's not necessary either. It's this one, view class diagram. So if I view my class diagram, I still have it saved. And now I want to add my card class. I want to add my card class to my card diagram. So I'm just going to drag and drop, if I can. Now if you notice, I can't seem to do that. How come? How come I can't add this card? Because I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Hold on, it's open. Let's try that again. This one. Here it is. So here's my card class, right? And if I expand this thing, it's here, but there's no relation. It doesn't show that there's a relation between my card class and my deck. Well, because they don't inherit, but it doesn't mean we can't draw a relation or we can't see how they relate. This would actually be up here somewhere. Here, let me just spin it down here a little bit. And you can draw these things or pull them. So hold on. Pull this over here, pull this over here, right? And pull this in here. So here's all my objects, right? Here's my card, and if you notice it has faces and suits. And it's a good idea to understand what my card does. If you notice my faces are integers and my suits are strings, right? Here's where they are here. So this is an additional item that's going to go in my diagram, right? And I can add the other ones too. I can add my faces. Here's my faces, right? Let's add that in here. My faces is just a class, and if I'm just going to expand this thing, if you notice these are all my faces. So move this over a little bit. I'm trying to add it into one page, guys, right? And you know what? Here is my suits. So I'm going to kind of add my suits in here as well. And again, what I'm doing here is I'm kind of trying to piece together what my class looks like. Now, does this give you a better picture of all my objects? Right? Again, if you notice, my faces have all these different kinds of faces. They're all integers. And these are my clubs. These are all my my suits. And I can expand this thing by pulling the handles, right? Like this. I want you to do that as a lesson for today. Here's your lab for today. I want you to take your assignment 3 as you're writing it, right? It's not going to mess it up. It's not going to stop it from running. And I want you to create your class diagram for yourself for assignment number 3. So pull it together. So if I was going to make assignment number 3, how would I do it, right? If I was going to start writing it, let's start writing it together. I'll create a new assignment number 3. So I kind of say, I'm going to kind of close this solution down for a second, right? And I'm going to follow along and start doing what I did from a starting position. If I didn't know how to do this, I'm going to go to my assignment number 3 details, and I want to do this. So I know I need to plan it. Let's start with this. Let's plot this out first. How do I do that? Well, okay, file, new project, right? And I'm going to make a new console application. I'm going to call this A3 demo, and I'm going to call this A3 demo because really it's a class diagram that I want to show you here, not anything else. And it's going to be COMP123 A3 demo is what I'm going to call it. I'm going to save it on GitHub as well. Let's create the basic project. Okay, here's my program, and I'm going to create a new GitHub repo. I'm going to go to repositories, and I'm going to add a new repository. And in here, it's going to be called the same thing, COMP123, right? And it's A3 demo. I think I called it that, right? Okay, cool. It's good. I'm going to create a repository. I'm going to get this URI, which is just a URL for what I'm going to use. And I'm going to go into my Team Explorer, and I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to go to Changes. These are all the things I'm adding in. So created base VS C# project. There we go, commit. And now I'm going to sync up with my URI. I'm kind of pasting in my URI here, and kind of click on publish. And now what this is going to do is going to connect me with GitHub. And now when I refresh, I have my new repository here that you guys can share. Okay, cool. So I've got this. I'm not going to touch this right now because I want to do what I was doing, right? I want to kind of pull together my new class. So the first thing I would do is kind of create it. So I'm going to go right click. If you haven't started your assignment number 3, some of you may not, I don't know. I'm going to go to add, and I'm going to add a new item, and I'm going to add a new class. Okay? And in here, I'm going to kind of put in here the type of class that I'm going to add. So it's going to be called Planet. That's what the class is going to be called. I'm going to click Add. Here's my new class. It doesn't do anything, right? I'm going to change the modifier in front of the class to Abstract. I'm going to make it a new Abstract class. That's the first thing I'm going to do and save it. Okay, that's all I'm going to have for my class. And now let's build it. Instead of typing it in like we normally do, let's just build it by creating the diagram and by basing it on what I've given you. So right click, I'm going to go to View Class Diagram. It's going to put the class diagram up, right? And then from here, I'm going to click this little button here that says Display Full Signature, right? There's 3 buttons up here. There's this one here, Display Name, here, which is Display Name and Type, and here, which is Display Full Signature. I want to use this one. So I want to see everything. Now, there's nothing here, right? Because my class is empty, right? Okay, cool. Well, guess what? Down here, and again, depending on how you've set up, I have my class details. If you don't have this window, you can right-click, right, and say Class Details. And it'll bring up that window. Okay? Okay, cool. I click onto it, and let's just make this bigger. And I want to match up what's here with what's on my assignment. I'm going to start doing. I'm going to complete it, obviously, because I might as well just do your assignment for you. But let me just show you how easy this is. So I need diameter, double, mass of double, and moon count of int. Just add those 3 things in. So these are all fields, right? So diameter, right? And of course, the diameter is of type double, right? It's private by default, right? My next one, which one is, what did I say? Diameter, mass, and moon count. Okay, diameter, mass, right? My mass is of, again, double, private, and my moon count is an integer. Yes?
You need to watch out for using this method of writing it.
Let's see. We'll do it together, right? Okay, so these are the things I've kind of wrote in here. So for my fields, diameter, mass, and moon count. I'm not going to do the other ones because I want to let you guys do it, right? And as I do it, take a look. Hey, look, it's starting to look closer to what it is. Here, it adds to my class, my diagram. I haven't looked at my code yet. I'm just doing my diagram right now. Okay, cool. Let's add in the next thing. Let's just be, go here, new method. Now, if you notice, there's also new constructor. What's that? Let's do that. A new constructor, well, it's just a method, right? That's all it is. And in my constructor, it automatically becomes public. And let's see what it shows here that I need. Well, my constructor needs to take a name, string name, a double diameter, and a double mass. Okay, so that's my first parameter. My first one is I need to add a name, right? Which is of type string, right? And if you notice, the modifier is, there's no modifier for this one. Let's add another parameter in there. What is it? Name, mass, and diameter. Diameter and mass. Okay, so I'm just going to do it the same way. Diameter, right? Which is a double, right? And I'm going to add another parameter in there called mass. That's also a double. Okay, cool. So that's my first method that I wrote. And it happens to be, I just called it, it's a constructor method, but it becomes automatic public modifier. That's why I made it the constructor method. I didn't have to say that. It's still a method, right? Okay, let's take a look at how that looks. Look, here's the way it looked over here, right? I'm matching it up. Side by side, it looks like, so far I'm good. Okay, this is okay. Let's add one more method just so that way we're clear. Or let's say I'll add a property and a method. Okay, so the method is called toString because I got to override my string. And I need to add a property. Let's add the name property. It's just a getter. Right? If you notice, if it just says get, these are read-only properties. If it says get and set, that's a proper property, like that has both getters and setters. Okay, so let's use this name, make the getter for just the name. Okay, so cool. So let's pull this up, and we're doing it here in the class diagram. And if you notice, there's navigate to methods, navigate to properties. Here it is. And I want to add a property. I'm going to call this the name property, capital N, right? It's of type public, right? And wait a minute, I can't set my, and it's type string, that's wrong. It's got to be of string type. Here's my summary. Can I click on this? I can make a little description here. Let's write some stuff in here. This is getter for name instance variable. Right, let's press OK. I've kind of put a summary in there of what it is. Let's see if that does anything. And let's go and view my code now. I'll say just close this off. Let me save this diagram. Right, and I'll close this off. and I go into my planet, and let's see what I got. Hey, look, I got a summary, right? Which is a different kind of thing. It's like a comment, but not quite, right? And I got a getter and a setter. Well, I don't need a getter. I don't need a setter, so I'm going to kill the setter. Here's where I start actually constructing my code. And you know what? I'm not going to throw this exception. This is just, it's written it for me. So instead of throwing an exception, I don't want that. If I'm getting, then I want to return the name. Well, I don't have a name because I forgot to add it in here. Let's put in a private name string, sorry, that's called name. So the name of the actual object. Okay, so that's cool. And here I'm going to return, because it's a getter, I'm going to return my name, this dot underscore name. Okay, so I've kind of written my getter, and I've got these things here, and I'm going to annotate them a little bit. So let's add some comments. Private instance variables. Okay, you know what? Man, it added this getter down here, right? And I want my getters before my constructor. Okay, well, let's cut it out and put it over here. Okay, there it is. And you know what? I don't like the summary. Let's kill the summary and add in a, something that says public properties. Okay. Now you see what I'm doing here, right? I'm constructing things, but using both methods. I'm using a little bit of my coding, right? And I'm also doing a little bit with my class diagram. And then here's my constructor. So let's add that in there. Constructor. Okay, cool, cool, cool. And you know what? When my constructor comes through, I want to assign stuff. So, this is typical. I would go, this dot underscore name is equal to name, and this dot underscore diameter is equal to diameter. You probably want to do that, right? And this dot underscore mass, right, is equal to mass. Okay, so I've got this stuff written. Let's take a look and see what my class diagram looks like. So I'm going to go view class diagram, and boom, right? I have more things fleshed out here. Yeah? You notice it says abstract class up here, right? My planet is italicized because it's going to be something that I can never create an object of. It's just an abstract class. You guys clear? So you see what I'm doing? You can create things both ways. This is a great way to outline what you're doing. You still have to modify, even though I created a property, and if you notice now it just says it's a getter, right? I'm trying to match up with what I got here. Obviously there's still things that are missing, right? But as you can see, it's not that difficult for me to put something together here, right? And it writes itself in many ways. And that's how I want you to, when you get an assignment from me, I want you to start off like this. I want you to start off saying, what is it that I need? I need these things, these 10 things. Let's put them together. And then once you start doing that, you're starting to build your class out. You may need to move things around and modify the code that's inside the areas. Like for example, I got that stub that says throw exception or whatever it was. That's just something that was generated by C#, right? I don't need that. I have to delete that, right? Move it out. How about other tricks and tips for the exam for tomorrow? So I've got this. Okay, cool, cool. You know what, man? In this planet's class, this is my demo. I want to include some kind of, in my program, I want to kind of create my menu. How do I do that? And you know what? I forgot how to do my switch statement. Well, there's a couple things to do. I could just type switch, right? And then there really isn't a way of, outlining it here for me, right? But what about, isn't there some way I can, I have something called outlining. That's kind of cool. Is there something I can do, as an example to add in different things? Project. Oh, I don't know what to do here. I got existing items. I got classes. I want this thing to write itself. I don't want this thing to, I don't want to write everything. I know that C# knows how to write basic things. How do I do that? Kind of thing. Well, look, there's this Code Snippets Manager that's right here, right? So I go to Tools, Code Snippets Manager. Follow me, guys. Some tricks, right? If I click on this, it brings up code snippets for the type of language that I want. I can select my language. So here's C#, right? And then I can go through that and say, Visual C# is what I want. And I go through and I switch. Wait, there's a switch statement. It gives me the thing here that makes it, like, it's a code snippet for a switch statement. And I want to click add. Okay, I could add my old codes, but that's not what I wanted. I want to maybe do that. Maybe I want to say okay. That didn't do it. Let's try maybe. And again, even if you don't know what you're doing, right? Let's try this again. Is it import? You know, how can I use this thing? Here's my switch statement, right? And I want to import. No, that's not it. I want to use it, right? Anyone have an idea how to do it? I can't add it, right? You guys figure it out? My point is there's tools, there's stuff that's in here that's hidden. There's tools that you can add. This is my Code Snippets manager, but I want to use Code Snippets, right? So that's my manager for adding code snippets. Is there a way for me to add code snippets in here while I'm going? Well, I know that I can add code snippets in somehow. If it's there, right, then I must be able to add it in there somehow. So let us, worst case scenario, if you don't know how to do it, right, I go to Google and I go C# code snippets. Right? How do I do that? So go to MSDN, right, as an example, and it's going to go through here and explain to me how to use my code snippets. And it says I can create my own code snippet. I don't want to do that. I want to use my code snippet. Let me just kind of zoom out here because I think it's bad. Tell me if you guys figured it out yet before I've come to it. Come on. How to use code snippets. All right, there it is. All right, cool. To use code snippets in the Visual Studio Integrated Development Environment, in the code editor, put the cursor where you want the code snippet to go. Launch the Insert Code Snippet menu in one of three ways. Press Control-K, Control-X, or on the Edit menu, point to IntelliSense and insert the snippet. Guys, this is like child's play. Let's see if this works. Okay, in here, okay, I go Edit, IntelliSense, right? And then I go to Insert Snippet. Okay, which snippet do I want? Visual C#. Okay, which one is under Visual C# that I want? Well, I want it to be a switch statement, and there it is. So it gives you at least one case, the default case, right? So you can start off, you know that you need a break in here, right? And you know you need other cases, right? Case 1, whatever the switch on is, switch on. We don't have a switch on. We don't have a switch on thing. So case, let's say case 1, then, case 1, and break. And let's say this switch on, we're going to create a new variable here, right? So we're going to make it integer, and we'll call it switch on, just to see how this works, right? And, well, that didn't work. Hold on a second. We have to initialize it, right? There we go. So this is your basic switch, right? If you don't know how to do something else, if you want to do some other complicated thing, you can go do the same thing. Right click, right? And a lot of times right clicking will do it too. Insert snippet right here. And inside the snippet you can choose Visual C#. And you can go through if you want to add something else. Like for example, if you want to do an enum. You forgot how to do an enum. You kind of do an enum and it kind of outlines it for you. Right? So at least it gives you some of the code you need if you forgot how to do it. Okay? Let's try that again. Let's try something else. So I want to go right click, insert snippet. I go to Visual C#, and I'm going to kind of decide something else. Let's do a do while loop. Okay? Writes it for you. Okay, that's cool. Let's do another one. Let's do a right click. I know you guys are gonna. Jake is gonna hate me. Outlining. Sorry, Jake. Right click, insert snippet, and go to Visual C# and go slip down in here. And I want to do a for loop. Man, I don't have to know how to write anything. Okay. Why am I showing you this stuff? Because hey, when it comes to rapid application development, we know how to write basic building blocks already. You're going to be able to get a for loop or a switch statement or whatever from Google, right? Why not have it integrated inside your environment? In this particular case, we do. So if you notice, it writes the basic shell of these. That's what code snippets are all about. They write the basic shell, and you can make your own code snippet if you want something that you use over and over again. Like for example, that silly code snippet that we use for wait for key, wait for any key. Remember we wrote that method, wait for any key? We can make that into a code snippet. And if you go, I'm sure, into MSDNA or MSDN here, and instead of how to use a code snippet, you went back to how to write a code snippet, like creating code snippets, we can click on this piece here, and it's going to give you a step-by-step on how to create a basic code snippet, right? And so on. So I'm not going to show you how to do that. It's kind of out of scope of this course. But the idea here is if you want to create quick kind of your code and you want to do it quick and dirty, this is the way to do it, right? Any questions around code snippets? How about surround with? That's another one that it allows you to do. So I've got some code, right? I've got my for loop, and I got this funky, I don't have a length. Let's just change the length to 3, an actual value. But I want to take the switch statement, which doesn't do anything right now, and the for statement, and I want to kind of pull it out into its own method. Well, you can simply right-click on here, refactor, and you can use extract method, right? And of course, this would allow me to extract a method. I'm going to call this my method, and then press OK, and then it extracts the method for me and creates the method call. Right? So it does that as well. So if you're coding and you're doing it like this is a quick and dirty way of creating your methods as well. How about surround with? So I have this do while loop and this for loop. They don't do anything right now. But I right click on this thing and I go, instead of insert snippet, it has surround with, and it says, well, what do I want to do here? I can surround it with another for loop, right? I can surround it with an if statement. Let's do that here. So I've got an if statement now, and it surrounds my do while loop. So again, I can use these building blocks to create my code, right, without actually touching the code, right? So I mean, I know I need a couple things, and this is a way of outlining the requirements. If you know that you need an if statement, you can kind of put things together really, really quickly. Hey, how about that Boolean thing? We made that Boolean. One of the requirements here is I has moons and I has rings is a Boolean, and you want to check. It says down here, it says, you know, in your requirements, it says, in your main method, implement the giant planet. Okay, cool, that's not it. And the interface I has moons will include a method header, has moons, that returns a Boolean data type. Okay, cool, cool. And then implement the has moons method that will return true if the moon count property is greater than 0. So how can I write that properly? You're probably going to say, if moon count is greater than 0, then true, then return true, else return false, right? That's just silly. That's like 8 lines of code. Is there a faster, quicker way we can do that in 1 line of code? The answer is yes. All right. We can use the, there's another operator that we're going to use, the tertiary operator, and we're going to be able to do that with. Okay, let's take a look at that and see how we do that. Let us write this interface together. So let me just kill all this useless stuff I've done here, because we don't need any of this stuff. So we don't need this. And we don't need any of this private static void method, my method. Let's kill all this stuff, right? Because I don't need any of this stuff. But I want to include an interface. So here is my method. And I want to make a new interface. How do I do an interface? Again, right click, add, new item. And I go to interface, and I want to call this, you know, I has moons. You can also say I have moons if you really like that. And press OK. It kind of creates my method. Here's my interface. And of course, in my interface, what does it look like? Well, remember, an interface, what it does is all we do is we outline what the method signature is going to be. So it's going to be called has moons. Now it's going to return void, right? Or bool. Sorry. So has moons, right? That's all it does. Okay. That's interesting. I could do this, but it says it needs to check. It needs to check the moon count, right? And if moon count is greater than 0, then it returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. Okay, cool. So that's my interface. That's cool. Now I want, let's say, you know what, my planet is an abstract class, right? Here's my planet, it's an abstract class. But let's say, for this particular example, I'm not doing your assignment for you. I wanted to implement the I_has_moons interface. Let's do that. So I'll say colon, and then I'll start typing I_has_moons. There it is. So this is an example of where I'm not inheriting. I'm implementing this new interface, I_has_moons. And inside my planet, I'm going to create this new public method that returns bool called has_moons. Right? Okay, cool. I've done that. Let me make this bigger so you guys can see it. Uh-oh, it's giving me an error. It says, not all code paths return a value. Well, yeah, because I say bool, right? So I got to return something. Well, I don't have a moon count, so I got to add that in here. So let's go private int, and then I'll call this moon count. Oh, I do have a moon count. Haha, I do have it. Let us initialize my moon count to 0. I shouldn't do this, but let's just do it anyway. Moon count is equal to 0. And I_has_moons is going to return a value. Well, I could simply do something like this, like you said. If, moon count, this is the way to do it, the old way. Moon count is greater than 0, right? And then what do I want to do? Here's all these lines of code. Return true, right? Else, right? Return false, right? I could totally do that, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm just doing it for example. It's not for your assignment. All right, so this is cool, but look, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Theoretically, this should even be on the next line like this. That's how it should look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 8, like this. If it was like this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 8 lines, right? Nah, this is too long. Let's just do it in one line. So remember the ternary operator, what it does is it checks a value. So the first thing it says is if this dot underscore moon count is greater than 0. Okay, that's the first thing. That's a condition. And then, of course, if it's true, right, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a colon, and if it's true, then, question mark, and if it's true, it's going to return true. And if it's false, right, it's going to return false. It's one line. It's called the Ternary Operator. You guys should learn this in COMP100. Question mark means, is it true? So the way it works is this. This is the general form. Okay, the general form goes like this. I'm gonna make this bigger so you guys can see this. This is the condition that I'm checking, right? Question mark means anything after the question mark means whatever true value this is. If this condition is true, then do this. It doesn't have to return true. In this particular case, I'm just returning true or false, right? Otherwise, the colon, do my false condition. What happens with the false? So there's two options, true or false. So for truthy, falsy kind of options, one or the other, why would I run 8 lines of code when I can do it in one? It looks confusing. When you look at it, you're like, it's kind of weird, right? Yeah. You could say this, equals. If it's equal to 0, then it's true, otherwise it's false, right? But that, when you wouldn't use that, you would say if it's greater than 0, right? Oh, here. No, you wouldn't use equals. The question mark is just a token that tells us that anything after the question mark is the true. What happens when the condition, this condition here, this is the condition, this is the true part, and this is the false part, right? In this particular case, there is only one way to do it, true or false. That's what you're returning. And this thing, this whole statement, this whole command returns either true or false, the true or false part. Now I'm returning it back to, whatever the calling method is, right? So really, this whole thing either returns true or false, depending on if moon count is greater than 0. So instead of writing 8 lines of code, right, I only run 1 line. It does the same thing. Again, general form, condition, question mark is the token, the truthy part, colon, the falsy part. Depending on, and truthy and falsy, by the way, could be functions. You could do function calls here. So go to a function, do something with the function, come back and return something, return true or false. Okay, so you can put other things in there. You don't have to put just one thing. I can make function calls happen right here. Okay. So this is a very quick and dirty way, again, to do the same thing that you do in 8 lines. And it is the exact same thing. The code iterates in the exact same way and is interpreted by the compiler in the exact same way as 8 lines of code. Okay, and we're going to see this. You're going to see this in advanced, more on the web more than anything else. And if you see it, you know what it means. You know what the question mark means, and you know what the colon means. And by the way, this same syntax, right, is good for Java, right? It's good for C#. It's good for JavaScript. It's good for Swift, Objective-C, C++. The ternary operator is inherited from C-influenced languages. So if you learn it here, you learn it everywhere. Okay, okay, so a couple things, just as a recap. We talked about what the exam is going to be like tomorrow. You're going to have to create, like I said, as a hint, you need to create some kind of menu that asks the user for input, and you're going to have to use a switch statement. It's going to be one of your requirements for tomorrow, right? 1. 2, you're going to probably have to implement something to do with an array, right? I'm going to write the array for you, the method for the array, and all that kind of stuff, so you don't have to figure it out on your own, because that'll eat your mind tomorrow if you don't know how to do it, right? So I'll make it for you, right? And I'm probably going to get you to download, or I'm probably going to include in your Dropbox, you know, in your midterm exam Dropbox, I'm going to include almost like a template that you're going to download and use as your midterm exam template, okay? Which is going to include some things and not include other things. I also talked about today as a recap, hey, how do I do these diagrams? I want to do a class diagram, and here's the one I created for this one. Right, here's my class diagram, and if you notice, hey, look, my I has moons interface shows on top of this thing. Now this is it's not exactly everything you need for assignment 3, but it gives you an example of how I can build my code by using a diagram like this and by using code snippets, right, without me having to actually physically type anything, right? Because these are tricks that you're going to need to know as we move forward, because I'm going to get you guys to do more advanced things. I'm going to go fast, right? So I need you guys to understand how to do these things as we move forward. Any questions around this? Okay, so good luck. I'll end it off for today. Good luck tomorrow. And again, we're going to start off nice and early at 8:30. Please be on time.